Judges, I want you to listen to this quote. Quote, I have spent my entire life helping others enjoy the various pleasures of life. That's all I have done. And yet look what I have faced for it. Nothing but abuse, hardship, torture, unquote. The speaker of that quote might surprise you. He sounds like a kind man, but he wasn't. His name was Al Capone, the brutal gang leader in Chicago. So why would Al Capone say something like this? It's a basic principle of human nature that Dale Carnegie, author of How to Win Friends and Influence People, points out when he tells that story in his book. The principle he wants to make clear is that people will always justify their actions, no matter how evil or disgusting they are. And this point is extremely important to remember when we're talking about immigration in the United States. In this speech, I'll help you see why exactly that's true by answering the prompt, was pausing asylum claims after the National Guard shooting the correct response? To analyze that question, we'll look at 3 points. First, we'll look at the background to the story. Second, we'll question whether this pause was actually a good decision. And finally, we'll ask, what is the solution to bad asylum policy? So let's start with the background. On November 29, 2025, CBS News wrote that the Trump administration was pausing asylum claims after 2 National Guards were shot in Washington, D.C. These National Guards were shot, CBS News continues, by an asylee let in from Afghanistan in 2021. BBC News reported on the same date, November 29, 2025, that the Trump administration reports that it will be pausing asylum claims so that it can ensure that maximum vetting of immigrants coming into the United States is undergone. BBC also reported that Trump has looked for mass deportations or to cut refugee admissions in the past. Well, so the justification for his cutting these asylum claims was, of course, this shooting in Washington, D.C. 2 national security guards were shot, or National Guards were shot, and as the Associated Press reported on November 29, 2025, unfortunately, one of them has later died. Obviously, this is a grave situation and a very tragic thing that has happened, but is the solution to a shooting of National Guards in Washington, D.C., to shut down all asylum claims? That brings us to our second point to ask, is this pause on asylum claims actually a good idea? Actually, this pause on asylum claims isn't just about pausing asylum claims. It's part of a broader theme of the Trump administration trying to overall cut back immigration, even legal immigration, to the United States. This follows a ban, or partial ban, CBS News reports on November 29, where immigration was banned or partially banned from 19 separate countries, including absolute disastrous countries like Somalia, Yemen, and Sudan, which effectively have no government and are all run by competing terrorist or otherwise militant groups. So obviously, we don't want large amounts of immigrants coming from those disastrous countries. The question, is a blanket pause on all asylums a good idea, is a very different question than, do we want terrorists coming into the United States? The solution is not necessarily pausing all asylum claims. The solution could instead be to just do more vetting. The Trump administration has pointed that it hopes to do more vetting in the future, as referenced previously in that BBC article, where it wants to ensure that vetting is done to the maximum degree possible. However, it seems that the Trump administration's desire to restrict illegal immigrant that the Trump administration's desire is not only to restrict illegal immigration or to ensure more vetting for legal immigrants, but to overall decrease legal immigration. This is an extremely interesting point, and this brings us to our third point. What is the solution to bad asylum policy? Well, because clearly, as we can see from this story, we don't. As we saw from this story, where the two National Guards were shot by an Afghan asylee let in 2021, some asylees are very violent. This man was apparently an Islamic radical from Afghanistan. And although he was let in, he clearly was not vetted to make sure that his opinions and worldview wouldn't lead him to violence. But that doesn't mean that the true solution to bad immigrants coming into the country is to block all immigration. The true solution is to evaluate people on their individual merits and then judge whether or not they would benefit the United States or not. John Locke writes in his second treatise of government a philosophy of how people become a subject of a country. He says to become a subject of a country requires several things. First, that person must be able to must be in a situation where they are enjoying the privileges that come with the country. They enjoy the land rights, the property rights, the right to free speech of the country. Second, he says that person must consent to the country. You can't force someone to become a citizen. Finally, third, he says that one must make a long-term commitment to follow the rules of the country. This is the crucial point. Becoming a citizen of a country means a long-term commitment. It means that you have recognized a duty to your country. You will serve your country for the next years. We shouldn't let in immigrants who justify their evil actions, just like Al Capone justified his evil actions. We can't always assume the best of everyone because some people do bad things. So, as we've seen from examining the background of this story, we've seen that unfortunately blocking asylum claims is not the correct policy approach to combat terrorism in the United States. The true correct policy choice to combat terrorism in the United States is to evaluate immigrants to the United States on their individual merits and to not let them justify their evil deeds.